Hey guys, you are watching or listening to the Shift Training Podcast,
where we talk about personal development, talk about mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health, and just overall well-being.
And today we're going to be talking about something that's fundamental to that. We're going to be talking about the power of communication. Today we'll just be having an open discussion and just rapping about the power of communication and, its service to connection. So let's get started.
Let's begin.
So, Vaughn, tell me what you know about communication, why we need that, why is it valuable?
Well, let's start with saying that we all have visual image, right? And people tend to judge or label us from the moment they see us. Mm-hmm. Let's say, for example, that person is overweight or fat. That's a bad word. Don't say that, you know? People will get jaded or they get hurt. But when we see someone's overweight or fat, we tend to have this assumption, oh, they're lazy. So as messed up as it sounds, positive or negative, is just most people are wired that way to judge. And it's the same thing with communication. We all have vocal image, and it tells a whole lot about you the moment you speak. You could be all dressed up with a suited tie, with money all around you, and the moment you speak, they can tell if you're confident or you have low self-esteem. So it's for me, it's the same thing. It's something akin to that visual image. Vocal image is as important as your visual image. And if you want to be an effective communicator, you need to work on that skill. And communication is a skill, but some people are innate or they have that talent with them when they were born. But for the most part, I believe it's a skill that you can practice.
I agree. I think that's super a skill. Side note super quickly, on what you said about the talent skill thing, I really feel like there may have just been something they started out having to do since they were very young or wanting to do very young. It's too hard to tell because, I think young in the game start developing stuff and nobody really knows what you're developing or what's coming out. So if you're in the right situation to where being good at communicating is essential, even as a toddler, and then all of a sudden in high school, you're like communication champ, which probably you're not, but at least at that level, you're really good at that level. It makes sense, but it's too hard because no one really ever sees the whole story.
That's true, huh? Yeah, I've seen that pattern too, because there are some friends in the Philippines who's extremely good at communication. They have no problem with delivering speech. And I believe she has been practicing that since she was young because she was so talkative.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't really know. But back to the importance of communication, the power of that. Okay. So I think what you're saying is very true. The way that we communicate or don't communicate says a lot about ourselves. And I think it's one of those things to be mindful of. In general, I would say for the larger picture, and this is generally how I view a lot of things, is communication serves us, especially as people, in order to connect, in order to collaborate, in order to create, in order to take what's in here and bring it out somewhere else or share the idea with another person. So that way collaboration can occur, creation can then manifest whatever it was that was originally in here. So communication is a tool and it's a very important one. And I think that clarity in communication is, that's essential. Gold. Yeah, that's gold.
That's essential. Yeah, without that clarity, we all going to have this misunderstanding, confusion with others, as we were talking about how communication is the key to connect with other people. And without that, there'll be, misunderstanding. That's why we need to be specific with our words, For example, in a relationship, when someone says, I love you, what does that mean? That's very vague.
Yeah.
Do you love that person because what? X, Y, Z?
What is your love language? I was actually listening to Jay Shetty earlier today, and it was something like 7 questions to deepen your relationships with other people. Something like that. Sorry if I butchered that, Jay, my bad. But it's great. Those are 7 fantastic questions that you want to ask. So one of them is like, understanding a person's love language. So what does that mean? And being mindful that communication isn't just how well you say stuff. Communication is also about how what you say is received and how you receive what other people say, how well you ask questions and listen to what that person's saying, being able to repeat it back and say, if I heard you correctly, you said, or it sounds like, or did you mean, or are you saying, and get clarification from that person on what they're saying. You need to really make that effort to thoroughly understand, because everybody, even if we're using similar language, due to our backgrounds and upbringing, we might not be speaking the exact same version of that language.
Yeah. It's good to like understand that there are different personality types with other people. The way we communicate with that person might not work to the other person.
Right.
Maybe that person is more emotionally sensitive, or the other person is more on the analytic side, the logic.
Right.
So if you communicate with that person in an emotional way, he or she might not take that in a way that the person on the other side might take it.
Right. True. Very true. Got to be mindful of how the person receives the information. And that's one of the things that I think that's essential to understanding how to communicate well. So for example, many of us have probably experienced this, and some of us maybe have not. But, just approaching somebody with a good intention and saying something a particular way, and then the person taking offense or being upset or not liking that approach, even if you had the best intention. That's where I would say the communication was that was off. That was a miss, So having clarity, like I said, clarity is not just about you being sharp or precise in your words, but it's also about how clear your message is received, or how clearly you understand or receive a message. I think that's where we start having clarity and communication. It's how well is there that understanding and shared picture or vision for whatever it was we just discussed.
Right.
Then we have clarity and communication,
Speaking of that, what do you think are the tips for improving our communication?
Ooh, okay. So we've got tons of these. This is fun.
Oh.
One of the people that I admire a lot, and I think is one of the master communicators, Ultimo Sensei, Grandmaster, is Jordan Peterson. He's very, very good with the communication, and he always, if you watch him do like a talk, someone will say, they'll ask him a question, and he'll say, well, what do you mean when you say X, Y, Z? Explain that to me. And they'll explain it to him and go, well, if you mean that, then it means this. But if you mean this, it might mean this. And I think that's a really good skill. So one of the things that he does very well, and this is a tip for improving your communication, is don't assume you know what the person is saying or implying. Ask for clarity. When you say, are you saying this, or I'm hearing this, is that correct? Ask them, gain clarity. I think that's one of the number one tips I could give in terms of improving your communication skills is don't assume.
Yeah, I think most people listen to reply, but not to understand. I think that's also an important skill that we need to sharpen our listening skills. So most of us are just like, we have this assumption, like you said, like, are you saying this or that? And I think that's an important point. I think another tip what I could give is, treat people all the same. Sometimes when we see somebody that are inferior or someone below us, we tend to like treat them differently. Maybe the janitor at your school, and you speak to him or her in a different way when you're speaking to a teacher or someone that is higher than the janitor. Right.
Yeah. Be mindful of how you speak to people in general.
Yeah.
That's a good tip. I would say I want to touch back on your note about the importance of listening, developing your listening skills. They always say, 2 ears, 1 mouth. There's a reason for that. It makes you more effective as a communicator if you can listen a little more than you speak, which I talk a lot. So, I'm guilty. I'm working on it. But So I'm preaching to myself as much as to you guys.
Yeah.
But that's important. Another tip I would give is writing.
To organize your thought, be concise.
To gain clarity for yourself. Because sometimes it's hard for you to even communicate what it is you're trying to communicate or say what you're trying to say when you don't even have that level of clarity yourself, where you're constantly missing the words for the idea. So I would say writing.
Yeah, I like that, because that's what I start doing when I'm like, what is it going on in my head? When it's just in my head and I don't write it, I don't have that much clarity.
But the moment you start writing?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, I can organize it. Oh, this is not supposed to be here. It should be here.
All right, there it is. Yeah, so writing is another good tip. And then what you got?
Okay, so we can, back and forth maybe.
Let's go. What you got?
I think for me it would be the rate of speech.
Ooh.
I think most people have that monotonous voice, and I'm guilty of that.
Me too.
And now I'm trying to, have that variance. And if you think about it, if you highlight a book, you slow down. So when you have an important message to say, that's when you can slow down. So that way the person could absorb the important message. And maybe you can speed it up a little bit when it's unnecessary. So those are just like different ways to communicate with other people. Usually if you just have monotonous voice or just blank face, they tune out, they check out.
Yeah. I was actually going to touch on the speed thing, but for a different reason. Another tip for improving your communication skills is slowing down sometimes, and not just for the sake of being effective in your communication or emphasis to another person, but also so you can gather your own thoughts. So sometimes we think that we have to
rush it.
And speak really fast, but I do this all the time. If you ever watch any of these episodes, right? There's times where I'll stop and I'll go like this, or like this, or this. And I think about what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So I make sure that I'm closer to what is the picture, what are the words I will use to describe what I really want to convey to people.
That's right. I think that's an important, another tip is pausing. When we pause, we allow the other person to not only to absorb the information, also allow them to reply on what you're saying. If you're just speaking way too fast, sometimes you're just nervous. For me, when I speak too fast, that's when I'm really nervous, and I tend to forget the important information or details what I'm trying to convey. And when you pause, I think most people are afraid of pausing because they're afraid of that dead silence.
Oh, I gotta let it be silent.
Yeah, and if you practice that pausing, not only gives you that confidence, you look confident, and eradicates those filler words or non-words, like you say, you know what I mean, because...
I do it all the time.
So when you pause, you seem more confident. You allow the other person to, you be more present.
True. I think the last tip that I have for communication is going to be, I'm doing it. I think the last tip for me would be listen to other skilled communicators. Listen to great speakers. The way that they execute, there's a framework. Now you can take classes and courses and learn these types of things, but I think listening to it and seeing it in application in real time also is another great way to learn. So listening to master communicators like Jordan Peterson or any other master communicator will help you improve your communication skills significantly.
Right, yeah. Finding someone that you truly idolize, the way they speak, maybe Jocko or whoever, or Dr. Jordan Peterson is a great tool. But at the beginning, maybe you might seem as if you are trying to copy everything what they are doing. But but I feel like that will happen in the beginning. But as you get better, you start to develop your own skills. But maybe in the beginning, you might feel like you're just copying and imitating this person. But
develop your own style.
Yeah, but as you get better, as I mentioned, you start to cultivate that own style of speech that you do.
Cool. Yeah. So, anything else?
Well, another thing is, we're gonna keep going on this. The power of communication. This is what I need to work on.
No, that's good. That's important.
I think another one would be, I would say, is tonality. So tonality what I mean by that is the words behind what you're saying. Do you just have like a blank face when you speak? When you're just speaking like this, no emotion behind it, then it could be boring. If you want to be engaging, you want to inspire people, you want to show that emotion. If you're sad, be sad with your voice. If you're happy, elated, show that in your face. Don't just have like this face. Yeah. How you doing? Yeah. Yeah, I think tonality is part of it. It's part of your emotion. I think another one is volume. Volume of your voice. From the scale of 1 to 10, you don't want to be in the 1 through 5. And the scale 1 on the 10, you don't want to be so loud that it becomes so obnoxious.
Right.
So you want to be like around 7 or 8, where you are perceived as confident, as a leader, or have that vitality.
Right. I think that what I'll say for us to wrap is, regarding what you said, like tone and volume. I think of words being the structure, tone being the color, and let's say volume is kind of the texture. So if you're creating a painting or a work of art, if you want to be a masterful communicator, be mindful of all those things, because it really conveys the picture so much differently than if it's just the words you use and they're all monotone, monotonous, like you're saying. So that all matters when communicating.
Yeah.
So is there anything else, or are we Gucci?
Well, the last one is, this might be a little bit advanced, because what I've noticed is if you have melody or pitch on the way you communicate with others, the more memorable you will be. If you try to memorize a lyrics versus a page of a book, which one do you think you'll memorize better?
It's going to be lyrics.
Exactly, because there's melody and a pitch. So if you can execute that or implement it in your...
And the rhythm.
In your communication, I think you'll be powerful.
All right, so I have to start rapping, everybody.
All right. I have more, but
Okay, guys. So that's it for everything on the power of communication, or at least what we have to say today. Where can I find us?
We can please follow us at Shift On Your Life on our social media and our podcast, Shift Training. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below what do you guys think.
All right, that's it. Thank you guys for watching and listening, and we hope you have a fantastic day.